Bruchem Aboim B'Shem Hashem B'Shem יותר. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's shir from Rabbi Yakov Smith Shlita on Maakeh bracha, constructing a Maakeh, a practical guide. To have great schus sponsoring a shir, call יותר 718-851-8651, email ist@yeshivanet.com. Rav Smith.
Someone was building a Maakeh, and obviously it's not a mitzvah tadir, it's not a common mitzvah, and he probably didn't know the basics. First of all, when you put up a Maakeh, is there a bracha said? Do you say shehecheyanu? Who makes the bracha? The balabas or the contractor, the worker? And when do you make a bracha? Because typically you make a bracha before the mitzvah, but here the mic could take a few hours, it could even span until the next day. So in the past we spoke about the actual chiyuv of Maakeh, and we said we'll get back to it, and I would like to do that today. I guess the practical guide, the do's and don'ts of the mitzvah of making a Maakeh. So if you notice, we have different types of questions about the bracha, when to do it, if you have a worker versus the person himself. I think we could reduce all our questions, as we always try to do, if we pose a very simple question. What is the nature, what is the tzuras ha-mitzvah of the mitzvah of Maakeh? And I'll explain. We have a mitzvahs, most mitzvahs, the mitzvah is the action, the tefillin, milah, you have to do a mitzvah. A guy can't mal a child, even if he's the best doctor in the hospital, because you have to have a bar chiyuva. So the mitzvah is the ma'aseh mitzvah. If that would be the case, then a guy that builds a Maakeh, you wouldn't have a mitzvah. Now maybe the Maakeh works because it's protecting, but if you give a guy to do the Maakeh, you're not makayim the mitzvah. Just like if a guy does milah, you're not makayim the mitzvah. But maybe Maakeh is a different type of a mitzvah, and that is the teitzah. You see, the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us a pasuk in the Torah, "Vasisa Maakeh l'gagecha," which is an asay, "Leisasim damim b'veisech" is a lav. And as we explained, it's independent. Even if you don't need a Maakeh, you have to keep a safe environment. But one thing we also see, that it's one objective: get your home safe. Don't keep a roof that's dangerous. So maybe we could suggest that Maakeh is a different type of a mitzvah. The mitzvah is not that you should put on a hard hat and build a Maakeh. The mitzvah is that your house has to have a Maakeh. So if the end result, you don't need shlichus. You know what you need? A good worker. Maybe if the balabas does it, not so good, because he won't do it a good job. You get a professional, he'll do a job, and you're safe. So maybe the mitzvah is the end result, the teitzah. If that's the case, then we could understand that maybe a guy works. But then again, we have to rethink, so maybe there's no bracha. If you're getting rid of a problem, maybe there's no bracha. So really it's a few shilas with one you say that we have to clarify. You'll say, but this doesn't make sense. I mean, where do we ever find a guy could do a ma'aseh mitzvah? So that, I could say, Iba Yisei Mekra, Iba Yisei Mesvar. First of all, Iba Yisei Mesvar. If you tell me that the mitzvah of Maakeh is the end result, to have a protective fence around your gate, so why can't a guy do it? It's not milah, it's not shechita. A guy that shechs is puzzle, simon beis and yeredeya. But this is the end result, so why can't a guy do it? But I can do better than that. Iba Yisei Mekra, it's Meferisha, Magen Avram, in Reish Samach Gimel Sif Katan Yud Aleph, quoting the Maram. Ma'aseh Shehaya, an Isha was delayed, Erev Shabbos, and already it's after Shkia. And she did not yet light Ner Shabbos, which is a calamity and also a very traumatic experience. She's going to have to light an extra knas kol yomeh. So Zoktim Magen Avram quoting Maram, no problem. If it's not yet Vadei Laila, if it's still Bein Hashmoshes, she could have a guy come and light Ner Shabbos. Lighting a Ner on Shabbos is Malacha D'Oraisa. How could a guy do Malacha D'Oraisa for a Yid? The Torah says, B'Maakeh mitzvah, you're allowed to have a guy do Malacha Bein Hashmoshes. So the Hilchas Shabbos is not a problem. But the main problem for Rabbi Akiva Eiga on this Magen Avram, how does this work? She has a chiyuv to do a mitzvah. You want to say she's yoytze with a shliach? Okay. But a guy is not a bar shlichus. Ain't shlichus anachi for Rabbi Akiva Eiga. So how could the Maram say that the guy lights and the Isha makes a bracha? How can you make a bracha? There's no ma'isat laka. Zok the Rav, Reish Samach Gimel, see if you cut in Gimel, I'll just give you a slight hakdama. The Rav is assuming we understand that the mitzvah of Ner Shabbos is not a regular mitzvah. The mitzvah of Ner Shabbos is not a pasuk. It's based on three objectives. To get shalom bayis in the house. There shouldn't be a dark home. It's not domestic tranquility if the house is dark. So you want to bring in the shalom bayis into the house. Kavod Shabbos. Whenever you have a special occasion, you light neiros by your bris, by davening in shul. That's Kavod Shabbos. And Oynik Shabbos, you don't enjoy the food if you don't see the food. So Zok the Rav, explaining the Maram, that Ner Shabbos is a different type of a mitzvah. The mitzvah is not the hadlaka. The mitzvah is the result. They're having the illumination in the house. And the Rav goes so far to say that it's an ongoing mitzvah. As long as the Ner Shabbos are burning, they're providing Kavod Shabbos, Oynik Shabbos, and Shalom Bayis. The mitzvah is ongoing. But, and here's the punchline, Zok the Rav, Oy Bazoi, you don't need a bar shlichus, you don't need a ma'isa mitzvah. If the Isha looks and she sees that there's Ner Shabbos burning, she in fact could make a bracha. Because you don't need, it's not the ma'isa mitzvah, it's the teitzah. Now I want to make a point before I forget, that the poskim say, once already it's after Shkia, although the guy could do it, but the Isha can make a bracha. Because if she can't light now, because after Shkia, she can't make a bracha l'hatik ner Shabbos. But we definitely see that this concept, if an Isha is late, a guy could light, and if it's still before Shkia, but for some reason she doesn't want to light, she could even make a bracha. Now the Maisa, the Mishnah Berurah in Tivkat and Chafalv says he doesn't understand how could a guy light and Isha make a bracha. So he would recommend getting a guy to light. No bracha said. But all agree that Lamaisa, when the guy lights, the woman is Yoitza. And Pashtis, and I saw that in the Archa Shabbos, Chelik Dalid, Pashtis, the Isha has no knas. Even though the guy lit it after Shkia. But it's a valid hadlaka. Oh, so what do we see? We see a precedent that a Maisa mitzvah hadlakas ner Shabbos, a guy could do. So why can we say Huadin, Maakeh? However, it's far from convincing. Because, as I told you, Ner Shabbos is not a pasuk in the Torah. It's three good reasons. Now, logic dictates that even though you don't have a bar shlichus, a guy lights, you're ending up with the result that you want. That's what's good. But by the mitzvah of Maakeh, the pasuk is v'asisa Maakeh l'gagecha. You have to do it. It's a ma'isa mitzvah. Maybe we'll say it's like Mila. You see, Mila also, you could say, Mila is also a teitzah. I want to turn the baby from a oral to a mohel. True. Maybe you're right. But it's also a ma'isa mitzvah. A guy that does Mila on a child, the child was not gemalt. You have to have a tafas dam bris. So we see by Mila, even though it's a teitzah, but you have to have a ma'isa mitzvah. So the same thing applies by a Maakeh. And you can't compare it to Ner Shabbos. In other words, Ner Shabbos is an exceptional mitzvah that it's only the Teitzah. But wait, I can find a different mitzvah that maybe we could say a guy could do. And that is the guy building a sukkah. We know the halacha is a sukkah is ganvach. If a guy built a sukkah, he did it l'shem tzeil, the sukkah is kasha. And the halacha, the yid doesn't have to make nanuam on the schach and pick it up and put it down. Doesn't mean it's kasha the way it is. So what do we see once again? A guy does something, it's good. So why can we see how I did Maakeh? But the truth is that's not correct. In fact, it's a toyus. Because there is no mitzvah per se of building a sukkah. The mitzvah is sitting in the sukkah. So that's why if a guy does it, it's a hechsher mitzvah, gesundheit. But here, the mitzvah of Maakeh is a mitzvah deraisa. Who says it works? In other words, the guy can't sit in the sukkah for you. He could build the sukkah, but he can't sit in the sukkah. So maybe then he can't do the mitzvah. He's a Maakeh l'gagecha. Oh, so what comes to mind is another shaila. I heard this shaila, true story, probably more than once. The painter, a goyish painter, but he knows his Jewish custom is, Before he painted, he takes off the mezuzahs, and after he finished, he puts back the mezuzahs. Now the Yid has a problem. A guy put up my mezuzahs. Is that a problem with the mezuzah? A guy put up a mezuzah. So the emes is some poskim hold, as long as he put it in the right place, it's on your doorpost. What's wrong? But most poskim feel that's not true. It has to have a kriyas mezuzah, and a guy is not a bar chiyuva to attach a mezuzah. So here we see fakert, a guy that puts up a mezuzah, even though you say, well, what's wrong? It's there in the right place, and it's a heilig mezuzah. There is, you need a ma'isa mitzvah. Oh, but I'll tell you maybe something else. And this is a true story. Be'ozni shamati, I should say. Someone came to me and he was very upset, and he said it's not lashon hara. Usually when people say that, it probably is lashon hara. But he said it's not lashon hara, but I'm very upset. A certain caterer, now neighbor, he told me the name. We trust them. I was the following. He says, I can say it's not lashon hara. He was standing in front of Goldberg's grocery. Then they have a mikveh, outdoor mikveh, and this truck pulled up with the name on the caterer on both sides of the truck. And two Goyish workers came out. They took out a few hundred kalim. And the Goyim Toivel Kalim, I'm eating in a catering hall that the Goyim Toivel the Kalim, what's going on here? So I wanted to say, if I didn't say it, Lo Yamar It's Chassid, and Lo Yamar It's Kanoi. I'll tell you why. Because Lamaisa, the Rashbin at Tshuva Chayla Gimel Simon Reish Nun Hey, the Shulchan Aruch quotes it and no one disagrees, and Yerideh Kuf Chaf Sif Cotton Tezayin, that I'm sorry, if a guy tables a keli, you yaitza. The only thing Dr. Amor is, but he's not neman to do it. You'll send a guy to table 200 dishes. He'll do the first one and the last one and one in between, and that's it. He's lazy. But let's say as a Yisrael is watching him, Dr. Machabi yaitza. Now, Lamaisa, there is a big problem. The Taz points that out. If you send a guy to do it, you lost the bracha. Because the guy can make a bracha, and you can make a bracha on a guy tefillah. So the eitzah of the Taz is the Yid should make a bracha on some of the kalim, one of the kalim upon him, and the guy does the rest. Which is exactly what happened in this story. The Yiddish worker who drove the truck got out, made a bracha, and he watched the goyim toivel all the kalim. So what do we see? Something very significant. Tefillas kalim is not just a hechsher mitzvah. Tefillas kalim is a mitzvah deraisa. It's a pasuk in Parashas Matos, and a guy could do it. Oh, so here we have to say l'chayra that the mitzvah of tefillas keli is a objective. It's the end result. It's the water that makes the keli into a kosher keli, into a toivel keli. So there, I understand. Varaya. Let's say a person is all fazveket, he's toiveling a keli, and he makes a bracha with such kavanah, and as he's making a bracha with such kavanah, he drops the keli into the mikveh. Was he yoy to the mitzvah? But he is, because he went into the water. A guy toiveling is not worse. So can we say hu adin Maakeh? As long as you have a Maakeh, you're good. But again, it's hardly convincing, because here the pasuk stresses vasisa Maakeh l'gagecha. Who told you it's only an end result? Maybe it's like shechita. Shechita also is an end result. The animal should be geshachten. But the Mechaber says in Yeridei Siman Beis Sif Aleph, a goy shachat, even if people watch him, is no good. So we're back to basically square one. What's the halacha? What is the mitzvah of the mitzvah of Maakeh? Oh. So what is helpful, there's a tshuva, we mentioned it the other week, Marach Or Zarua Siman Kuf Chav Ches. He was asked a general question. When does shlichus help for mitzvahs? So his basic klal is, there are certain mitzvahs, a mitzvah shebegufay, that you have to do yourself. You can't delegate a shliach. For example, tefillin, tzitzis, achilas matzah, sukkah, yeshiva sukkah, lulav. You can't have a guy shake lulav for you. But many mitzvahs, he says, a shliach works. And listen to this Mishalom. Shchita, hafrashas chala. I'm talking about Yiddish shliach. Kedushin, Gittin, Kviyas Mezuzah, and Asiyas Maakeh. So we definitely find Shlichus works by Asiyas Maakeh. But we don't yet see if a Goyish Shliach works. Maybe, just like he has on that list, Kedushin and Gerishin Shliach works, or Mila Shliach works, But you can't have a goyish moil or a goyish kaddish. So maybe, again, back to the conclusion that a goyish worker that builds a makkah will not be good. Oh, but we did find something which is mamash our shayla. The Machnei Ephraim in Hilchos Shluchim Siman Yud Aleph asked our question point blank. Misha writes, L'sakem makkah the uman akum, iyavarich alav. Is it good enough that he can make a bracha because he has a mitzvah, or maybe not? So he has an unbelievable chiddush, and he says a choshen mishpat issue here. We know yad eved ki yad rabbi. An eved that's mamish indebted to you, and he's your worker, more than worker, he's your eved, is more than just a shliach of yours. He's like an extended hand of yours. And we say the same concept, he brings a rashba, by a poil. When you have a schir yoim who's meshuvah to work a whole day, if you finish this job, you got to do this job. As opposed to a contractor that's working for a job. But a poil that's working a poil that's working a schir yoim is like a sort of a little bit your eved. So he says a big chiddush that yad poil ke yad balabayis works even for makkah. So not only can you get a goyish worker to do the makkah for you, but when the goyish worker does the makkah, it's like your hand did it because yad poil ke yad balabayis. And therefore it's so much your action, you could even make a bracha. Then he says, which for us is music to our ears, a second svar. Another reason that a guy could make a makkah for you. And he says, mamish, our yisai that we're looking for. When you need shlichus to make it good, like kedushin, so obviously a guy can't be a shliach. But let's say someone volunteers. You're sleeping at night and he decides to be a nice guy. He goes to your house that does not have a makkah, doesn't ask you questions, you don't make him a shliach, and he builds a makkah. Great makkah. Well, you to the mitzvah? Avada. You have to have shlichus? You have to have shlichus. You have to have a teitzah. Zokti Machnei Ephraim, makkah, you don't need a shlichus. You need the end result. And if a guy does it, you have an end result. What's his raya? Listen how beautiful it is. His raya is tfilas kelim. Tfilas kelim, a guy that titles is good. Makkah, a guy that builds it is good. But then he says, so what do we see? Tfilas keli, the mitzvah, the makkah, the mitzvah is a teitzah. But we don't yet see a yid can make a bracha. Because when a guy toivels and he doesn't do anything, a yid can't make a bracha. He says, so therefore the svar of teitzah works, but doesn't allow you to make a bracha. But the first svar of yad poil ke yad balabayis, that's such a powerful svar, it even allows the yid to make a bracha on the makkah that he does nothing of the mitzvah. And that's his conclusion, that we have two svars that a guy does a makkah is good. The svar of yad poil is so good it even allows the yid to make a bracha. And this is mamish what we're looking for. However, that's not the final word. The Minchas Chinuch in Tafkuf of Memvav Sif Ois Gimel, he says Nira Bara. When it comes to makkah, either the person has to do it, the yid, or a shliach. But if a guy builds the makkah, he was mavatal the mitzvah say. Just like Mila, a guy does Mila, even though it's a perfect job, you're not yoitza, the makkah that's done by a guy would not be a ma'isa mitzvah of makkah. And he adds, I found later, the Machnei Ephraim says a chiddush, that you don't need shlichus. He says, by me is bara, by getting a guy to do the makkah, you're mavatal the mitzvah b'yadayim. Now he also probably agrees that l'maisa the makkah is effective, it's working. But he says, to have a guy do it, you lost the mitzvah. And he says, it's not doimet to sukkah, because sukkah is just a hechshe mitzvah. Rabbi Kiva Eiger has gulyonis on the Machnei Ephraim. To show you what the Machnei Ephraim was, he was zoicha that Kiva Eiger wrote notes. Kiva Eiger just says, the yad poil ki yad balabayis, he's taking it to an extreme. Can you kind of guy who's your worker, shehecheyanu, be made for the dharma of your wife? Can a guy be a shliach for kedushin or get? Because it's your poil. So Kivega also basically disputes the whole assumption of yad poil ki yad balabayis. So here we have lamaisa, our question, our chakira is a machlokes, Machnei Ephraim and Minchas Chinuch. Now, what's halacha l'maisa? So we're going to do a little bit of an hapachu. Typically, we first have the aside, and then we apply it. Here we're going to learn hilchos Maakeh, and then we'll look back and see, so what is the mitzvah Maakeh? But first we'll learn halachas, Maakeh, and it's sort of an hapachu, if I get in the yeshiva, after Chanukah is already Purim. That's the mitzvah. So maybe we'll do it of an hapachu. Let's start with a simple shayla. Let's say I built a home, and I have a roof, I have no Maakeh. Is there an Indian mitzvah boy that I should go be a dayim and build a Maakeh? Or shliach is good enough? Question number 2, let's say the balabas is a talmid chacham muflig, and he wants to do it himself. He feels mitzvah boy. But halacha is someone that's a talmid chacham muflig is not allowed to work b'shus harabim. He's going to be standing on the roof, banging and knocking. It's also it's a b'zayin atayr. So l'chayra, this should be totally. If it's a ma'isa mitzvah, a talmid chacham do a mitzvah. And listen to this, it's a Pharisee Gemara. Kedushin Dafai, and the Gemara says Rabbi Yehuda had to appear in front of Rabbi Nachman for a din Torah. He came to Rabbi Nachman, and what's he doing? He's working, construction. He goes, what's going on here? He goes, this is not a klinikite, I'm building a Maakeh. So we found both questions in a Gemara. Rabbi Nachman was a talmid chacham, a dayan, muflig, and yet he built a Maakeh be a dayan. So what do we see? That even to the extent that a talmid chacham is allowed to do it. Now, is this a raya that Maakeh is a ma'isa mitzvah? Not necessarily, and I can prove it. What's the halacha if a talmid chacham Matzah Yom Kippur, he wants to follow the Ramah, and he wants to go out and build sukkah Matzah Yom Kippur, but he's a renowned talmid chacham. Zok the Shari Tshuva in the end of Taf Reish Chaf Hey, on that Ramah that's a mitzvah to build the sukkah Matzah Yom Kippur, he says, he quotes other achrayim, that even a talmid chacham muflig is allowed to build the sukkah barabim. What's his makar? Kedushin Daf Ayin, Rab Nachman built the Maakeh. In fact, it's before the Shari Tshuva, the Marilam and Hagim, Hilchos Sukkah Ois Aleph. He says that the Maram Segal b'chvoidai uva'atzmai built the sukkah v'yimesakna mikol v'kol. So the Chavos Yair and the Tshuva Siman Reish Hey, b'zoyin ha'Torah. No, it's obvious. It's muchach. What he's doing is a mitzvah, and there's no chsar no kavod ha'Torah. What do we see? That a talmid chacham could even build the sukkah. We also know this halacha. From today, everything's with pictures. There are many pictures of Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky schlepping schach for the sukkah. There are pictures of his father, the stipler, either schlepping schach or building the sukkah. So it's a halacha l'maisa. But Rabbi say, what do we also see? That when it comes to mitzvah boy, or the mitzvah of building, even though you're a talmid chacham, you don't need a ma'isa mitzvah. How do I know? Because building a sukkah is not a ma'isa mitzvah. It's only a hechsha. So, in other words, when it comes to mitzvah boy and the heta, even with talmid chacham, you don't need it to be a ma'isa mitzvah like mila or shchita. As long as it's a ratzon Hashem, I guess the svara is zilbas taima. It's not a bezayin to do something to do a mitzvah, and even a mitzvah is so big, even the hechsha mitzvah is big. And the biggest raya is from a different Gemara. Mechaba in Reish Nun Sif Aleph, he says every person should do something to cover Shabbos. Even a talmid chacham gadol, he's not different than when he quotes the Gemara. Rab Chizda, Machatach Yerek Dak Dak. Rabbi Yosef was chop wood, and Rab Zera would make the fire. And Mizel Yolmait Kol Adam, and he shouldn't say I'm too above it. I can't sweep the floor to cover Shabbos. Chas v'shalom. That's covered HaTorah. So we see from another halacha that Kvod Shabbos is mitzvah boy, and there's no Torah of talmid chacham. Now I do know the Mishnah says that really covered Shabbos is a little different, because the mitzvah is Ta'achana for Shabbos. But definitely from Sukkah we see that even though it's not a Kiyum mitzvah, but it's enough to allow a talmid chacham. Okay, so let's move on. We do see mitzvah boy yoysim v'shluchei by a Maakeh, even if you're a big talmid chacham. So we see two halachas. Now, next question: is there a bracha said when you put up a Maakeh? So Pashtus, why not? Okay, the Marshal says a klal. It's an avera to do a mitzvah without a bracha. But here could be the following svar. If the mitzvah is taitzah, maybe there's no mitzvah on a mitzvah that's taitzah. But that is not convincing at all. Because I could prove it. Because Ner Shabbos, very good. Ner Shabbos is a mitzvah of taitzah, and yet there's a bracha. Tfilas Kalim also probably is a taitzah, dika mitzvah, and there's a bracha. But there is a reason not to make a bracha. Listen to this. In brachas, that when Gimel on the base in the bottom, the Gemara darshan the pasuk, Biskadishtem v'yisem kedoshim, Biskadishtem zu mayim rishonim. That's the mitzvah until Shadayim for bread. V'yisem kedoshim is mayim achronim. Frek the Rambam, very weird. The Rambam in Hilchos Brachos Yud Aleph Dalid. Why don't make a bracha on mayim achronim? It's a mitzvah. In other words, it's the same pasuk mayim rishonim. Zok the Rambam, because the mitzvah is to get rid of sakana. When you do something to remove a sakana, there's no bracha. And he gives an interesting analogy. Let's say someone's drinking water at night, or by day, and there are leeches in the water. There's bugs in the water. It's not safe. Besides, it's an issa. So he's masan in the water, and now the water is safe. You make a bracha on that. You don't make a bracha when you remove a danger from your house. So what do we see? Removing a sakana, there's no bracha. So maybe we'll say, hu adin, putting up a Maakeh, there's no bracha, because you're moving a sakana. It sounds good, but it's absolutely not true. Because the same Rambam, in the same Hilchos Brachos, a few halachas later, halacha Yud Beis and Yud Dalid, writes that on Maakeh, there is a bracha. The Rambam has two halachas. If you put up a Maakeh in your own house, you make the bracha, l'asayis Maakeh. If you put up as a shliach, if you're working someone else's house, al asiyas Maakeh. But the Rambam himself says you make a bracha on a Maakeh. And taka the Welt fragt, so isn't that a stira? Removing sakana, mayim achayim, you don't make a bracha. And building a Maakeh, you do. But the Chayre Teretz is posh, it's not even a kasha. Can't be a kasha. The Rambam wasn't soisa a few halachas later. First of all, mayim achayim is not a deraisa. In fact, many people, Teves already records the minig, Machaba quotes it in Kuf Pei Aleph, that today they don't wash mayim achayim. So if it's a chiv, you can't just change the pasuk in the Torah. And no doubt about it, it's not a deraisa. So once it's only a remez, to sakana, no, don't make a bracha. But Maakeh is a mitzvah deraisa, vasisa Maakeh l'gagecha. More than that, when you take out the leeches from the water, so there's no remnant of the mitzvah. When you build a Maakeh, so the Maakeh is kaya. And that's why it's pashit, there's no stira. But then I found the Levushay Mordechai, the Madarov, in Archaim Siman Gimel, Chelgav Siman Gimel. He also asked this question, and he says a very interesting teretz, a chapush teretz. He says, the mitzvah of mayim achronim is remove sakana from myself. That is no bracha. But Maakeh, I'm also doing it for the workers that are on my roof, and the people that visit, and I'm doing it for yenim. That's more of a chiyuv that requires a bracha. But at the end of the day, we have to say that we have a very good case to say that on Maakeh, we do make a bracha. Comes again the Rekeach, one of the Rishonim, one of the Balei HaTosfos, and he says a klal, a mitzvah that even a guy is mechuyev to do, there's no bracha, because you can't say b'tzivanu, because the goyim do it also. And believe it or not, one of his mishalim is there's no bracha on Maakeh, because even a guy is mechuyev to make a Maakeh. Now, it was a plea to me, a guy is mechuyev to make a Maakeh. So I looked into the sugi a little bit. Some say, I thought pashit, maybe it's included in suicide. A guy achas dimchem l'nafshesechem edrash, a guy can't commit suicide, and having a dangerous roof maybe is an avizraya of a suicide. But I found a little different, that leaving a roof without a Maakeh is a avizraya de retzicha. Or some say, that's the marsham, some say it's al dinim, a guy has to keep a safe environment. But at the end of the day, like this rekeach, there is no doubt about it, a bracha is not said on Maakeh. However, as I told you, the most Rishonim hold there is a bracha. You want to see a very conclusive list in the Sefer Bir Halacha on our Siman in Choshen Mishpat Tav Chav Zayin has a long list of Rishonim and Achronim. You make a bracha on Maakeh. The Goyim Aiserav says that in Ois Kuf Chayodam Tezvav Chafei. A Kadman the Yosef Oyim is Tav Bei Aleph. So basically we're convinced, and that's the Aruch HaShulchan said as well, that on Maakeh we do make a bracha. Now, Lamaisa, so much so, although Rishonim hold not to, it's considered a Vadei Chiyuv, and we don't say Safek Brachas L'Hakol. So definitely we're convinced that a bracha is said on a Maakeh. Again, the chiluk would be, if you're building your own Maakeh for your own house, you make a bracha L'Asis Maakeh. If you're working for someone else, Alasiyas Maakeh. Lamaisa, again, don't forget, even though brachas ain't a ma'akvais, but we don't do a bracha, we don't do a mitzvah without a bracha when there's a chiyuv. Lamashal Aram La Yitraim, you can't take off truma, why not? Not because the Maisa truma of the fact that he can't make a bracha. The Taz, as I told you earlier, the Taz wonders. The Mechaber says, if a guy toivel the dishes, you're yoitza. In fact, the Taz, why are you making it a b'di'evet? The Rashbi says, l'chatchila, guy that toivels is good. Zok the Taz, you know why? The tefillah is good, l'chatchila. But if the guy toivels it, you lose the bracha. And you don't do a mitzvah without a bracha. So that's why the Taz says the best eights would be you make a bracha, toivel one dish, and the guy do the rest. But we definitely see we don't do a mitzvah without a bracha. So although there is a rekeach and other shittis that hold there's no bracha, but the minig Yisrael is on Maakeh we make a bracha. The only question, which is a shtickle of ha'ara, the Rambam says the fair is to make a bracha. The Mechaber makes no mention of a bracha on Maakeh. So that's a tzarachian. The Achreinim discuss it, but it's not enough of a reason to change the psak. On Maakeh, a bracha is said. Do you say shehecheyanu when you make a Maakeh? After all, you don't do it every other day. It's once in many years. And question number two, someone that never did a Maakeh in his life, and now he's doing it, does he make a bracha of shehecheyanu as well? So here, the same Rambam, Hilchas Brachas, Perikut Aleph, Halacha Tes, he says, on Maakeh, shehecheyanu was also said. However, I must tell you, there's a famous Yisoid of Teves. Teves is a few words, but a big Yisoid. In Sukkah Mem Vav, that a mitzvah, the shehecheyanu was only said on something that is seasonal. Mizman lizman. Chanukah comes once a year. Purim, Sukkot, because the shehecheyanu is lazman hazeh. It's not just, oh, I'm so happy. But Baruch Hashem, I'm alive to see another Chanukah, another Purim. It has to be seasonal. But Maakeh is not every year, every other year. You buy your suit every other year. But Maakeh is once in a lifetime. So therefore, Tosis holds there's no bracha on only Mizman Lezman. Plus, even the first time in your life you do it, where the Ramon Yeridei Siman Chav Ches Siv Bey says, the first time you make Kisi Adam, you make a shehecheyanu. But the Shach of an art, the Pri Chodesh, the Pri Megadim all say it's not true. Because the first time is very exciting. But it's still not Mizman Lizman. It's the first time. So they even argue on the Ramah. And Taka, that's the Minika Oilam. The first time you do a mitzvah, even though it's very exciting. So the Bel make a shehecheyanu. The people say, make a shehecheyanu. No, don't make a shehecheyanu. Because it's not Mizman Lizman. So what the right thing, and all the poskim say, this is the Tshuva in our Simmons, if Cotton Chabal says it regarding Kisi Adam, that try, before you make Kisi Adam for the first time in your life, try to get a Peri Chodesh, a Pi Chodesh, and make the bracha on the Pi Chodesh, and have in mind that mitzvah as well. The Bialacha in Siman Chavei says regarding new tzitzis, and the Chaim Kanievsky says Lagabi Maakeh in a Sefer on Hilchas Maakeh. So basically, when someone knows he's being Makayim the mitzvah of Maakeh, either for the first time or even not the first time, but he's doing it, buy a Pri Chodesh and make a shehecheyanu on that, and it goes on the Maakeh. They say a story, someone asked Rabbi Yashav a shayla about making shehecheyanu. He said, Falazach on a Pri Chodesh. He was embarrassed to ask Rabbi Yashav, where's the Pri Chodesh? Because he didn't see a Pri Chodesh. So he went home, looked it up, and he couldn't be soiva. I didn't know. So he asked Rabbi Yashav, who the Pri Chodesh? So he says, I meant Falazach on a Pri Chodesh. Buy a Pri Chodesh and make a shehecheyanu on the Pri Chodesh. So that's the halacha here as well. So Falazach on not the Pri Chodesh, on a Pri Chodesh. Okay. Ma'aseh Shehaya, someone built a Maakeh, and he was so excited about the mitzvah, he forgot to make the bracha. Now he's looking at a ready-made, ready-to-use Maakeh, and he didn't make a bracha yet. Can he make a bracha after it was done? So we know that at Til Shadayim, we don't really make a bracha over l'asiyasa. We make it after we wash. But since the hands are wet, it's a little bit over l'asiyasa. So the chayre, if he didn't completely finish the makkah, so he can make a bracha and he complete it. But talking about it was totally finished. Zok the El Yerabba and the Prima Godim and Taf Lamed Beis, that once you finish the mitzvah of Azmana, Bata Kabona, it's too late, you can't make a bracha. And therefore he lost the bracha. Now I had a little of a kasha here, because Lamaisa, let's say an Isha tzinded licht. 20 minutes before the Zman, no problem with that. That wasn't a problem. But she forgot to make a bracha and started saying the tchinas, the tfilos. Can she make a bracha 10 minutes after she tzinded licht? That's my question. So you might probably wonder, what's the shaila? Every Isha makes a bracha after she tzinded licht. Right? That's the minig of Ashkenazim. At least women. Men make a bracha like Rav Yassin, but women make a bracha afterwards. So what's the difference, 2 minutes after or 10 minutes after? So that's true. But that's because the mitzvah of Ner Shabbos is the Teitzah, the end result. So once you lit it, you have the burning nearest. What's the chiluk? 5 minutes after, 10 minutes after? As long as it's before Shkia, you can make a bracha. But if we hold that the mitzvah of Maakeh is the Maisa mitzvah, so the bracha is said on the Maisa mitzvah. After the mitzvah is done, you can't make a bracha. It's too late. And that's probably why it seems from this halacha that the El Yerab and others say you can't make a bracha after the Maakeh was done, that it's not only a Teitzah, which it is, it's also a Maisa mitzvah, Basisa Maakeh, and now it's too late. What? Oh, so you can take it down, but that's funny because it's a kosher Maakeh. Now we'll soon see about taking it down. Now, next question. Okay, Lamaisa, we're making a bracha before. When is the preferred time? So typically, shaking lulav, eating matzah is no shaila. The oivas yasmin gave aita. But here, the asiyas makkah, especially if you have a big roof or you have to make a railing, it takes a few hours. Sometimes it can even go into the next day. So who said you're making oiva of such a long maisa? More so, a little of a aura. I wonder if you ever thought of this. I'm making a bracha on achilas matzah, lulav. So the bracha is chal on something. I have the matzah in front of me. I have the lulav in front of me. What is the bracha asiyas makkah going on? Nothing was done. Maybe it's like oiva to oiva. There's nothing there. So the maisa, it seems to be clear, and most poskim say this. The Stechemed Mereches Brachis Aleph Ois Tezayin says that the askamas poskim is you make it before you start. Now here we have a kasha. It takes a long time. Maybe you can't make oivas yasm a long time. So I'll tell you a mitzvah that we all make a bracha on, even though the real mitzvah takes place 12 hours later and it's the next day. Which berachas mitzvah make a bracha that the real mitzvah takes place probably 12 hours later, which is the next day, a night in between? That's the mitzvah of bir chametz. We make a bracha before the bedika, bir chametz. When do we burn it? Probably 12 hours later. Zok the bala'it, the one of the Rishonim, in Chelik Beis, Hilchas Tzitzis, that's the Ayin Vav in the old print, that we see that even though the mitzvah takes a long time, you stick with Ayvasi Yasan, Huadin Makkah. So that's why the minig ha'olam is, before we start making the Makkah, even though there's nothing in front of us that it's chal on the mitzvah. Now, Lamaisa, there is a Chasam Sofer. Now here it's interesting, you see the koyach of the Chasam Sofer in Hayra. He was not asked about this shaila per se, but he's talking about making a bracha on a mitzvah that's nimshach, Lamashal writing a Sefer Torah, beautiful tshuva. But he throws in agav hamaka b'maka be'emes einim mevarach el b'makoish achrain. When do you make the bracha on makkah? The last hammer blow. B'shosh esois mapirtz achroina shleipa noifli menu. The koidim lezeh einay makkah b'zeh bara be'einay. Very short, but he's very emphatic. What I think he means to say is, if it's not yet a functional makkah, so there's no makkah. But the other paiskim, and again the Seichemet says, although the Chasam Sofer said this, but most paiskim hold the bracha is chal on the Maisa mitzvah. So here we have almost mikatza el katza. The minig ha'olam to make before you start. The Chasam Sofer shita is makvish achroin, Rav Vosden, Chelik Dal, Reish Chav Ches, said that and that was his minig, like the Chasam Sofer, But Lamai and the Tuvas Hanhagas and a beautiful Tuva Chelik Beis Tavshin Chafei also says this. But as we said, the Steichemet says Agam the Soifa. But the minig is before you start, you make the Berachas HaMitzvahs. Now, what would be a Maila if you could, if it's possible, if the worker or the balabas, whoever's doing it, make a bracha and not be mafsik until you finish the entire binyan makkah, like we do by bedikas chametz. Ma'aser shahid is a true story. Someone was so excited, that always happens, by the mitzvah makkah, that he says, when I built the actual makkah, I forgot to have kavanah. He was so dehype and he just forgot. So l'chayra, since Maakeh is a mitzvah deraisa l'chol hadayis, and we pass in a siman samach, siv dal and mitzvah svichas kavana, we have a problem. So first of all, I mean, this person had a little nerve, and obviously he's so excited about the mitzvah. What do you mean, he forgot the mitzvah? What do you think he was doing? He stopped exercising. Now someone told me he's by a chasana, and Shmuel Burma was Masada Kedushin, and the chasana came over to Shmuel after the chuppah. I didn't have kavana l'shem chuppah. Didn't have kavana, it's not yaitz, I'll do it again. Shmuel said, did you see someone walking towards you in a white gown? You saw that? Okay, that's enough kavanah. Another shaila, I know this person, he wrote to Rav Voslan, Chelik Vav Siman Kuf Samachtes, that he finally waited a number of years to have a child, and he had a baby, and he made pidyon haben, he forgot to have kavanah. So Rav Voslan told him that if you said the words, what the father typically says, that Chavatz Ani, Lifdais B'ni, that's enough kavanah. In other words, if you're Isaac ben mitzvah, you don't have to have a kavanah that actual second. That's kavanah. But it's chayr more than that. There's a famous chayodam in Klal Samaches Sif Tes, which is very good for people that have nervin and nervous. He says, when is there a psul of lack of kavanah? When you were doing it for a different reason. You were blowing shofar, you forgot that it's Rosh Hashanah, you thought it's a regular Tuesday, so he's practicing. Or he says Krishma to practice on his diktuk or on his kriya. But lemaisa, if you did a maisa mitzvah, there's no reason why you're eating matzah on a regular night. Obviously, you know it's Pesach, and you're eating matzah. So that's enough of a kavanah. Which the Bura in Siman Samach Siv Kat and Yud, if it's muchal lefi inyan, that's enough kavanah. So here I would have thought that when a person's building a makkah, what's he doing? He's putting up a safety feature. Now, did he have in mind the mitzvah deraisa? Maybe he did it, but it's nervin. But even if he didn't, what else are you doing it for? But all the Heintige Poiskim say that maybe he's doing it to look nice. You know, yeah, you can't have a porch without a gate around it. So I'm not sure if that really is the case. But what I found beautiful, the Mayadam Uzman and Rav Sternbuch and Chelik Al Simon Chavav, he says a klal. When a mitzvah is a toitzah, the end result, you don't need kavanah. As he quotes a Bechanan in Kavit Shurim, Ksubis, Reish Mem Tes. So he has this very shaila. He says, therefore, if a person built a makkah and he didn't have kavanah, he was yaitza. Because the taitzah is there. Now, L'idach Gisa, Rav Shlomo Zalman, in a beautiful tshuva, it has nothing to do with makkah per se. He's talking about kavanah b'mitzvahs. In Chelik Aleph Siman Aleph Mincha Shleima, he says the following interesting maskana. L'niyas daiti, a person built a makkah and he had no kavanah whatsoever. In other words, it wasn't nerve. He had no kavanah. So, although he lost the mitzvah deraisa of makkah, but lamaisa, he says there's no issa of leisas namam veisecha, and if he goes on that roof with that makkah, he's not over on basis makkah legagecha, because it's a functional makkah. Mitzvah, you don't have a mitzvah never, but lamaisa, it's a makkah, no reason to tear it down. So there we see his assumption is maybe if you didn't have kavanah, you're not yaitza, so maybe say hineni muchan mazuman. But basically, I think a person puts up a makkah, he has at least a basic kavanah. Next question, which is most negeya. We could put up a mezuzah, that's easy, but the typical person cannot put up a makkah. So the question is, if I get a worker, a contractor to build a makkah, did I lose the mitzvah? Do I make a bracha? Does he make a bracha? And question number 2 would be, if a person has a goyish worker. So the Maisa, the klal is that if I make a shliach to do a mitzvah for me, b'dikas chametz, ner Chanukah, any other mitzvah, and the shliach successfully does the mitzvah, who makes the bracha in that case? The shliach, because the one that does the mitzvah make a bracha. So if I delegate a shliach to make the makkah, a poyel, so without yad poyel yad balabayis, he's my shliach. So what I end up with? I have the mitzvah, because it's shlichus, but I'm missing mitzvah boy, yoysim mishluchai. Which might not be a bad idea, because if you're going to make a makkah, yana makkah, you know what you're doing, so it's not safe. It's like, like one Rav told me, he usually tells fathers of the Avi Ben, don't make the milah. Mitzvah boy for other mitzvahs, because he said, I've seen more than once that Avi Ben makes a milah, and the child's an oral. He doesn't know what he's doing. He tries. You have to be qualified. So to build a makkah, you have to be qualified. Now, Avada, I don't have to mizalz on that. If Avi Ben knows what he's doing, fine. But it has to be, the Paiskim say that mitzvah boy is nitcha for hidden mitzvah. We want to write your own Sefer Torah, but it's going to be in a Sefer Torah. So better get a Sefer and pay him. Then you have Yad Poyel also. But no doubt about it, if you hire a worker, he makes the bracha. The question is, which I once cleared, let's say a builder, the typical builder. Yid, of course a Yid. A builder that builds a house for himself, he's not for himself, but he doesn't have a buyer yet. And he puts up a makkah. So the chayra, if he's not living in the house, and not planning to live in the house, the chayra is no chiyuv. The only thing could be, there's a sifri that is medayik, kisivna bayis chodosh. What's that chodosh? So the sifri holds, that's where the Tziv explains it on the sifri, that Maakeh is a chiyuv on the bayis. Or bayis that's livable is mechuyev Maakeh, even if no one's living in it. Not chayiv sador. So right, that's sifri. Maybe the builder can make a bracha. But typically, if he has a buyer, then the buyer should get involved and make the builder a shliach to make the makkah. Now, the question is, if the balabas wants to get a bracha, wants to make a bracha. So the chayre, there is a simple eitzah. And that is, if before the makkah he begins the work of the makkah, he should do something. So then he's making a bracha on his asiyas makkah. But what seems to be the askamas hapoiskim, I saw Rabbi Yashiv's quote is saying this in Sefer Habayis Amakuf Manalef, the Reb Chaim Kanievsky in his Sharatzian on his Mishnah Berurah on Hilchas Makkah, Sifkat and Gimel, and others, they all say it's not enough to do a little b'zeicha l'churban. You bring the bag of cement, you got involved. You have to do a ma'isa of makkah. To build at least a small makkah that has 10 tvachim high and dalet al dalet. But if you don't do anything of significance, you're not doing anything. And the bracha is not chal. Which is problematic because the average person doesn't know how to build a gate. But I was thinking, Efsha, and I think it makes sense, what the best eights would be, if the balabas wants to make a bracha, chamle, yikach mitzvahs, and a bracha is worth 10 zehuvim at least, right? What he should do is call the poyas, listen, I'm going to start, I'm going to do as much as I can, but I'm not qualified. I'm making a bracha, I'm making a shliach, and I want you to be yoytze with my bracha. So then l'char mamanashach, the bracha works. If you say it doesn't work for the mishaleya because he did very little, but he's working bracha al shliach al shemei koinam, even though it's a nusach of l'asayis, but it's not ma'akiv, l'char that would be an eitzim. Or maybe if your minig is like the chsam soifa, tell the fellow to work in it, do it, and the last makish achrein, so that you could do, if you know how to do that, and then you have a full bracha that's chal on the ma'isa mitzvah. So the ma'isa, we're going to say that if a person does have a Yiddish shliach, of course, he should make him a shliach. He has the mitzvah al shlichas, he doesn't have mitzvah boy. Maybe, again, if he could do it, he could, but typically he can't do it. But that would be the best eitzah. I want to make a point because someone punked asked this to me. It's very much to our sugya. A person told me, I'm not getting involved with his shalom bayis, but his wife is very late for their Shabbos. She's typically in the shower when it's the mamish a minute for his mom. So a few times he lights the neris because it's almost shkia. But she has no problem. I'll make the bracha when I come out. I'm ready. So is that legitimate that he lit the ner Shabbos before shkia, and she comes out whenever she comes out and makes the bracha? So there are two problems with that. Number one, even if it's still before shkia, so a bracha could be said, but who makes the bracha? The one that does the mitzvah, and that's him. The only sad to be makel would be that if ner Shabbos, as we said earlier, the mitzvah is the taitzah, so maybe anybody could do it. But then again, the bracha is the hadik ner Shabbos, and she's not doing anything. But what's more often the case, he told me, is she's ready to make the bracha after shkia. And that no one holds is good, because once it was past Shkia, a bracha can't be said because you can't do it. So getting back to our question, what we said obviously about the Maakeh, it's a kedai to get a bracha, and the mitzvah, do it right. What's more challenging is when you have a goyish worker. Now, I always like to mention this. We have a mitzvah deraisa, economy yara misecha. There's a mitzvah to buy Jewish and hire Jewish workers. Yiddish, our brothers need panasa and their families need panasa. It's always kedai to get Yiddish workers. So when I say goyish worker, I mean when a Yiddish worker is not available. But whatever the case is, we're talking about a person that has to have a goyish work, whatever the reason is. And now the question is, what do you do about a mitzvah and what do you do about the bracha? So this is mamish, our chakira, our sugya that we began with. L'chayra, this is not a ma'isa mitzvah. The guy did a great job, and it's a very good protective fence, but it's not the b'yishlam l'sisa makal gagecha. And just like a guy can't do meal, even though he's a great surgeon, and he can't take off trumas ha'maisris, even though he does a good job, but if there's a mitzvah, the pu'ula, he can't do it. And that's why it's pashut, leite min chaschinach, by hiring a goyish worker, besides losing the schus of economy out of misecha, you're losing a ma'isa mitzvah. The chaschinach writes, he's mavatal the mitzvah say. Now, but if you hold like the Machna Frayim, that said two svaras. One svara is yad parol ki yad balabayis, even allows you to make a bracha, and the second svara is taitzah. Oh, you have a good taitzah. So like the Machna Frayim l'choira, we have a eitzah, if you have to hire a goyish worker, and even the yid could make a bracha al yad poyel. However, again, it's very hard to be soymich on the Machna Frayim regarding bracha, because most poskim hold that it's a ma'isa mitzvah, and there's no bracha on a non-ma'isa mitzvah. And the truth is, even the Machna Frayim agrees that the only svara to make a bracha is yad parol yad balabayis. But the other svara that we said that it's taitzah, not enough for bracha. Kive'eges taina is an eyes and a taina. Yad parol yad balabayis, he could do any mitzvah for you. Lamaisa, once that's the truth, that even the halacha, you'll be saimich on the Machna Frayim that you have a mitzvah, but you can't make a bracha, then you run into a different problem. Because like I told you earlier, the Shulchan Aruch says b'di'eved, it doesn't say the lashon, but come out. Im hitzvah kalim, you're yaitz the mitzvah. Frektas, why is it only b'di'eved? He says because if you're going to end up having to do a mitzvah without a bracha, that's no good. Or am la yitrain. So if you're going to have a goy toivlin kalim, you cannot make a bracha. So if the guy makes the entire makkah, no bracha could be said, and that's a chesar. If a person has no other eitzah, and there's no worker but a goyish worker, let him do something enough to make a bracha, then he has the bracha. And then he can fall lazich on what's mistavra, that the mitzvah tachlis, taitzah, is enough to give it a ma'isa mitzvah. Lagabi non-bracha, lagabi the actual mitzvah. But as I told you earlier, and this is important to mention, the Tzitz Eliezer Chelik Yutes Siman Samach Dalid, who stresses this clearly, that this that we say Yad Parol Yad Balabayis is not every worker. Yad Balapoyel is when a poyel is indebted to you. He's like a shtickle of an eved. He's mishubet to work a full day. If you hire him to work a full day, you could give him this job and that job, as opposed to a kablan that has a job to do, his own time, his own rate, his own progress. He could do what he wants. So Zok the Tzitz Eliezer, that don't forget that. This that the Machna Frayim was makel was only by a shehecheyanu. Now, to my knowledge, workers by derech klal don't get paid by day. A contractor is a kablan. So if a guy is a contractor or handyman, whatever it may be, could be even the Machna Frayim svara doesn't apply. So you have to be careful about that as well. Now, Lamaisa, as I told you, the minik seems to be, and that's, I think, seems mistavra, that you can't make a bracha on a goyish kablan's work with the makkah. But here's the point that we should understand. If the guy did it, it's a makkah. It's still a protective fence. And even if you hold there's no mitzvah or no bracha, but lamaisa, the makkah is effective. So The only question is, did the Yid have the Kiyam mitzvah? So that's taka a shaila. But now, let us go back to our original Chakira we began with. What is the halacha? What is the identity of the mitzvah of Maakeh? So let's think. We definitely know one thing. Ner Shabbos is a Tetzah mitzvah. Sukkah, building Sukkah, is not even a Tetzah. It's not a mitzvah, but it's a Hechsher mitzvah. So it's a Tetzah of preparing for the mitzvah of Sukkah. That's fine. Mezuzah, l'chayra, besides the Tetzah, that the mezuzah on your doorpost, but we did see enough paiskim that a guy that's kaveya mezuzah is no good. It would be a problem of Teves and Asli. Take it off and put it back again, and then you have a kosher mezuzah. This is also negeya grad if a mezuzah fell off on Shabbos. So we don't put back a mezuzah on Shabbos, pashtus, because of baina. So can a guy put it back a mezuzah? So besides the fact that if it's taka baina deraisa, what's your heta? A guy can't do malacha deraisa. But besides that, the guy doing malacha, the guy doing the mezuzah should not be done. Now, grad sama mekel, I must tell you, as long as it's put up, it's good. Tfilas kalim is another interesting teitzah. A guy that toivel is good. You don't need shlichus. You have to watch that he does a good job. You lose the bracha. Mila, shchita, hafarshas chala, in a certain sense, are also teitzah mitzvah. But that's wrong. They are ma'isa mitzvah. They have a teitzah. What is the maskana regarding Maakeh? It seems most poskim take the assumption that even though it is a teitzah mitzvah, but vasisa Maakeh lagagecha, the fact you make a bracha, and all the other nafkaminas that we said, there's oivel asiyasan, all the halachas lead to the direction that it's also a ma'isa mitzvah. And achrein chov, let me tell you, someone asked me a shayla. At first it was scary. He said he doesn't know why he did it, but he was involved. He's a shtickle of a contractor, his own house, and he first built the gate on the roof, and then he put most of the floor of the roof. Actually, his shayla was with a porch that he first put the railing, and then he built the floor of the porch. Now, how he did it, I don't know, but this is what he told me. He built the Maakeh, and then he built the gagecha, or he built the Maakeh and then the porch. What's the shayla? So he wanted to know, is that Maakeh puzzle? Because of Teves and Asli. So the Maisa, that's klar. It was a dysfunctional Maakeh. There was no gagecha. And don't forget, the pasuk says v'asisa Maakeh lagagecha. We know by tzitzis, sukkah, and mezuzah. Since the pasuk says lashon of asiya, we dash in Teves and Asli. And the poskim say who adin Maakeh, v'asisa Maakeh zedin Teves and Asli. So maybe Taka his shayla was very tzimzach. Maybe it's not a functional Maakeh because it's Teves and Asli. So he's and the emes is the Seif is Einikot, Seif is son, Seif is Tshuva, Nchayish Mishpat Simela Matches says about this as a similar shayla of Teves and Asli. He would have to take down the Maakeh and rebuild it. He said you don't have to take down the whole Maakeh. Take down a part of it, enough to make a bracha on it, and rebuild it and make a bracha. However, l'chayr, we saw a number of times what we call a shpalt. Even if in the worst scenario you are mekayim the mitzvah of this Maakeh l'gagecha, but it's still a functional shmira. Zalman said it to the extent that even if you have no kavana, mitzvah, but you have a Maakeh. And the Marshag in Yeridei and Nun Zayin Bekitza and in Yeridei and Simon Samach Gimel says this point. And he says, even if Taka, when you built your Maakeh before the Gag, you were not mekayim a mitzvah. There's no lamafreya here. And Taka, you'll say it's Teves and Asli, you are mekayim the mitzvah. But the Maakeh, if it's protective, keep it as it is. So he lost the mitzvah. And like one bacha told me in yeshiva, he didn't really lose a mitzvah, he never had a mitzvah. Because when he put the Gag, then he had a roof. So whatever the case is, you don't have to tear it down. I couldn't talk to you all.
Shame Egan Shirtailing like your biggest account of Smith with today's share. To have the great exclusive sponsor in your share, call Egan Shirtailing 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Rani Menakasha Mazgash Bogle Zakes is self given to Mr. Shnema and no office of Sidki Yangdel Terviade.
Hey! Cool.
Right. And the share also needs like a Maakeh needs a hekef, something around, so we have to seek him. The Maakeh make the hekef of the share.
Exactly right. Let's just chazer over what we learned today. We did a pretty broad subject. No doubt about it, there's a mitzvah d'oraisa of Maakeh, and it's possible that the ik is a tetzah, but as we proved, it also needs a ma'isa mitzvah. So basically, it's not like Ner Shabbos or Tfilas Kelim that the ik is the tetzah, but here you have to have a safe environment. That's true, but there has to be some type of a ma'isa mitzvah. That's the svara. Building a sukkah or a chana l'Shabbos is fundamentally different because it's more of a hechshe mitzvah than a chiyuv mitzvah. Mitzvah boy applies not only to a mitzvah but even to a hechshe mitzvah. Sukkah, chana l'Shabbos, and avada Maakeh, like we saw from the Gemara. When the minig is to make a bracha, the owner makes the bracha. The owner of the house that is make a bracha l'asayis. The shliach makes a bracha asiyas Maakeh. The minig is not to make a shehecheyanu, the like Rambam. Once the person finished the entire Maakeh, he can no longer make a bracha because it's no longer oivel asiyasam. When do you say the bracha lechatchila? So most poskim hold before you start. Some say fashita the Maakeh is achrain. About you can rely on that b'diavad if you forgot until the end. Even though it takes time to see as Maakeh, but it's not different than b'dikas chametz. A person did a mitzvah of Maakeh. Usually there's kavana, that's what we're going to say. If Imam is could say he's no kavana at all, no, so he lost the mitzvah, but the Maakeh, of course, is still functional and it's kosher. A Jewish worker who does the entire Maakeh makes the bracha asiyas Maakeh. It's better that the balabas get involved, do something of significance, make the bracha of lasais and pata the poil. I forgot to mention, which I didn't find before, but let's say the balabas made the bracha when the poil was not there. Poil came a few hours later and starts to do the second half of the Maakeh. Is the shayach to make two brachas? The balabas makes one bracha and the poil makes one bracha. So the chayre, like b'dikas chametz, there's only one bracha per mitzvah. So the chayre, he should not make a bracha. If the balabas, as we know, the balabas makes the bracha, if he could, he should make a bracha l'chatchila. If an isha was late for sending Ner Shabbos, so she could get a greater light Ner Shabbos, but the bracha is not said, if the husband lit for her, he should make the bracha, and after shkia, no one makes a bracha. If, as we said, a goyish worker is employed, so there's surely no bracha. Pashtus is no ma'isa mitzvah, he loses the mitzvah, but at least the Maakeh can be done. If a yid wants to do part of it, he can make a bracha as well. There is a din of tasav l'mina asui by Maakeh, but it doesn't make a chilek because the Maakeh is kosher. I mean, it's not kosher. It's functional. It's good enough to take away the lav and even take away the bittul asay. Back to you. Yes, sir. Yeah.